Our guest on This is America is Dr. Hussein Hassouna. He's ambassador from the League of Arab States. He's former ambassador for the League at the United Nations and is a member of the United Nations International Law Commission. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Dennis.
For the folks who might not know about the League of Arab States, give us just a little bit of the history and a little bit of the mission.
Well, the League of Arab States, which people call the Arab League, is a regional organization. It is the oldest regional organization that was created in March of 1945 between 7 member states, and now it has a membership of 22 members. It has grown over the years. It has started as a political organization trying to coordinate the position of the member states, and now it has developed into really an organization that is focusing on all kind of different aspects of life in the Middle East. It has expanded to comprise specialized agencies like the United Nations in the field of education, in the field of agriculture, of labor, of environment, of the promotion of the role of women, on disarmament, so you name it. So it is an effective organization, and I think the importance of this organization that it can deal with the regional issues in a better way than others because it understands the history, the culture of the actors, and it has a very strong relationship with the United Nations also that relies on it in many aspects.
Because of what we know of as the Arab Spring and all the transition that's happening in the Middle East right now in the Arab world, has the mission changed?
Well, officially it hasn't changed, but in fact, the role of the League has changed because it reflects the new developments in the region. Mm-hmm. It takes into account now the will of the people, the aspiration of the Arabs for more democracy, for more respect for human rights. And you can see this in how it has operated. But it still faces a dilemma because the Arab League is an intergovernmental organization. So in my view, it should develop and incorporate more civil society. It should also develop in creating new structures, like creating, for instance, an Arab court for human rights. This is how I envisage it, but it has so far reacted to the big crisis in the region to support the aspiration of the people. You have seen this in Libya, for instance, when it has called for a no-fly zone that was eventually adopted by Security Council, that has led to, of course, the intervention there that has brought a new government into place and restored legitimacy to the people of Libya. And it is playing this role also in Syria now, where it is trying to help the people of Syria to accede to democracy and to more freedom. But it is not easy. It is facing challenges, and as you've seen, the sense of monitors, just to find out what's happening, to open the countries to the foreign media and so on. And they have put forward a plan just a few days ago calling for transfer of power from the president to his vice president, then holding of election, formation of a coalition government, and then a dialogue between the opposition and the government sponsored by the League, and support by the Security Council for the Arab Peace Plan. So it is moving, I think, in a very positive way, but it needs cooperation. It needs cooperation from the governments, and it needs support from the international community.
Let me ask a couple of follow-up questions about Syria, because the League of Arab States is very, very dramatically involved right there. 5,000 to 6,000 people have been killed. President Assad's regime is very, very repressive. And the League sent in observers, may have done some good because in some small areas tanks have been pulled back, shelling has stopped. But when the League calls for him to step down, immediately rebuffed and rejected.
True. But I want to emphasize something here which is sometimes misunderstood. the mission of these observers was not to stop the fighting. They don't have the mandate to do this or the means to do this. The mission of these observers, like any observers sent by the United Nations or other organizations, it's a fact-finding mission. They were there to report on what was going on. So sometimes people expect them to intervene and to stop the fighting. They were just reporting, and they sent a report, a comprehensive report, to the meeting of foreign ministers that took place a few days ago, describing the situation. Well, I think they need strong support. They need more training. I think the United Nations is trying to help them. They need to send more observers, which the ministers have decided to do. They will continue again because their mandate was specifically for 1 month. Now it will continue again. And they have been welcomed by the people, by the opposition and by the people under siege, because they want to show to the world what was happening. And this, they have succeeded in doing so. As for what the Syrian government has rejected, the initiative of the League, it is very unfortunate, because I think the regime has to understand that this problem cannot be settled through military means. There must be a political solution. There must be dialogue. They must accept reform. They have to release the political prisoners. This is the only way forward.
Do you think Assad will be open to that?
Well, let me tell you, I am not sure. But what I can say is that the final analysis is up to the people of Syria to decide their own fate. Yes, they can have support from the Arab League, they can have support even from the United Nations, but it is up to the people of Syria to decide how to manage their future, what kind of government they need. And as long as they don't have the capacity to do so, unfortunately, we will see this, this violence going on. So we have to support the people who want more democracy, who want reform, but it's up to them, and it's up to, it depends how many defectors there will be from the regime. And the Syrians are divided, to tell you the truth. Some of them are still supporting the regime and the army also to a great extent, and some are against. So eventually they have to choose and to rally around some common goals and make things happen. But it's not the international community that can really do things happening for the Syrians.
Let's take a little break. Come back on the other side, because we want to talk about your service here in Washington, the relationship between the League and the government here in Washington. Take a little break. Back on the other side, we are talking with Ambassador Hussein Hassouna from the League of Arab States. We'll be right back. Sit tight. This is America.
This is America is made possible by the National Education Association, the nation's largest advocate for children and public education. The American Federation of Teachers, a union of professionals. The Singapore Tourism Board, there's something for everyone. Singapore Airlines, a great way to fly. Punsan Corporation, forging a higher global standard. The CTC Foundation, AFO Communications, and the Rotendaro Family Trust.
Mr. Ambassador, service of 10 years here in the United States, is that about right?
Yes.
And you're going to be leaving us shortly.
Unfortunately, I will.
I'm sorry to be seeing you leave us. What has been the toughest challenge that you've faced while you've been here, and also your proudest accomplishments? Let me just put that out on the table for you to run with.
Well, first of all, I must tell you, I'm leaving with a mixed feeling. I've spent now 10 years in Washington representing the Arab League. Before this, 55 years in New York representing the Arab League to the United Nations. So 15 years in a row This was the longest term of any posting I had abroad. I've been an Egyptian diplomat for many years now, and then I've been the last 15 years an Arab League diplomat. And it has been a long career. And I'm leaving Washington with mixed feelings. Some of regret that I have so many friends. And of course, it's always sad to leave friends. And I also enjoyed Washington as a city. I enjoyed, my wife and I, we enjoyed the cultural life at the Kennedy Center, at Strathmore. We enjoyed the intellectual life. I used to go to many think tanks, debates, and also the restaurants. You know, I used to be a political counselor of the Egyptian embassy 30 years ago. And I must say that the city was different. It looked much more provincial. So now it is really becoming an international city, and we really enjoyed everything in the city. What accomplishments I had? I think I devoted myself to try to explain to the American people what the concerns were in our region, how the region has evolved, how the Arab world viewed the United States, tried to explain that we are a proud people. There are 300 million Arabs that have a great civilization that has enriched the Western civilization, and that we wanted to be partners of the United States. September 11 has really affected our relations somehow, but I think the message I had, that this attack was an attack on all of us. It was an attack on humanity, not just on the American people. And we had to work together to stand up against this minority of extremists. And we have to engage in dialogue, even if we have differences. And we have many differences, especially on issues of foreign policy. We always viewed the United States not always being fair towards the Palestinians and other issues. We regretted, of course, the invasion of Iraq also. But still, we think that we can settle these issues through dialogue and negotiations and not through confrontation. But I've been traveling all over the country. I've talked at universities, business centers. I've talked in churches, in synagogues, in mosques. And my approach was always to explain things in a rational way, in a balanced way. And I found a huge response to this. I found that American people are open-minded, and they like to listen, to understand. Sometimes they don't know enough about our part of the world. And sometimes, of course, they're subject also to some misconceptions, you know, about the Arabs and the history of the Arabs and so on. Some of them, like in any country, are biased. This is for sure. So my job was to convince them, to open up their minds, to understand, to be fair, to be conciliatory. So I think I managed to some extent. But I also managed to initiate some initiatives, cultural initiatives. For instance, and you remember very well, you were there present when the Arab League and the Kennedy Center co-sponsored this beautiful cultural and artistic arabesque festival. For 3 weeks, we had 800 performers from the Arab world, from the 22 countries. It was a huge success. I also sponsored some economic initiatives. The Arab League co-sponsored for a few years U.S. Arab economic conferences. We got the business community from the Arab world together with the business community from the United States together. And they worked on common interest and on partnership. And this was a great success. I also worked very closely with the Arab American community. There are about 3 million Arab Americans in this country. And they're very successful. And the Arab League worked very closely to promote their cultural heritage, that Arab identity. Although they're Americans, but their roots are in the Arab world. And they're proud to have these roots in the Arab world. And we worked with them, for instance, to create the first Arab American Museum in Dearborn, which is a beautiful place. And there are so many Americans who go there and visit to understand the history of the Arab American immigrants and how successful they have been and so on. So I think I have done what I could. Of course, I didn't always have the means, the financial means to do whatever I wanted, but I worked with the Arab ambassadors. I hosted in my office regular meetings. We always discussed the issues. We went to explain our position to the State Department, to Congress. Congress, I must tell you, was not always easy. Sometimes the congressmen, they have their own agenda. But we tried our best to explain the Arab point of view on all main issues.
What do you think, Ambassador, are the two biggest or one or two stereotypes that you just are leaving and you just shake your head, whether it's about the Arab people or the Arab culture or Islam, that you just keep shaking your head and saying they just don't quite get it? What are the stereotypes that we still hold here in America vis-a-vis the Arab world or Islam?
Well, as I mentioned before, September 11 had a devastating effect on Arab, Muslim, and U.S. relations. Because before this, people used to look to the United States as being the country that is open to all religion, that is open to all immigrants, that is moderate, that is accepting all points of views. After September 11, we felt that people have become suspicious about your origin. There has been some racial profiling. There has been some Islamophobia. But let me tell you, this is not what the average American feels. I think this is a minority. And we tried to work with the Americans to overcome this and to show that we have common needs, common aspirations. And I was very happy when President Obama, on his first day of inauguration, came out and I said, I want to start to building a new relationship with the Arab and the Muslim world, based on common interest and mutual respect. And this is what we are looking for. So there was some misconceptions, some bigotry, and I must say the media plays an important role in this. When you see some people in the media, talking about the Arabs as if they were all terrorists, if they were all background, if they were hating America, this is very negative, because the media, you're a man of the media shapes the perceptions of people. And if you have this talk, a lot of people who don't know anything about Arabs might think this is the truth. So we have to counter this. How do we counter this? By explaining to the American public that this is not the true picture of the Arabs. This is not the true intention of the Arabs. And I must say, I worked with you, and we had a beautiful program on This is America about the Arab world. You try to represent the Arabs through their history, through their achievements, through their culture. And this is a way to show the real picture and identity of the Arabs.
Well, I remember that with the League's support, we were in Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, UAE, and Oman.
Yes.
And what an eye-opening experience that was. I mean, and I have said often, you can say what you will, but the warmth and hospitality of the Arab people cannot be denied.
Well, this proves one thing. It is only through traveling, through exchange of tourists, of students, of business people, that people understand more about each other. Mm-hmm. People respect each other more. And this is what should happen, because people who just live in their own little circle, who never travel abroad, they don't know, they don't understand the rest of the world. So I would encourage this, and I've been doing this myself. I've been sending students from here. I've been sending some journalists from here to visit the Arab countries, and when they come back with a totally different impression and picture. This is so important.
You're going back to Egypt.
Yes.
Egypt is a country in transition from Mubarak to military rule to now upcoming elections. That's a story unto itself. Are you excited about returning home, setting aside the fact that you'll miss Washington and your friends here in Washington and New York? That's a challenge unto itself, right? Are you taking something from our Western culture back with you?
Well, I am excited, and I feel it's a challenge. I'm leaving my long diplomatic career of 40 years for the Egyptian Foreign Service and then for the Arab League, and I'm starting a new phase in my life. And I'm very much excited, especially going now back to Egypt and trying to contribute to the building of the new Egypt. I want to become a political activist. I will try to advise my good friend and old colleague, Mr. Amr Moussa, who was Foreign Minister of Egypt for 10 years and then Secretary General for 10 years. And I think he would be a good candidate for president. We have the elections coming soon, by June of this year. And I will try to be involved in this political transition that is taking place. But I also have other plans. After all these years in diplomacy and also I had some academic background also, I want to share my knowledge and experience with the young generation, because the young generation, they're the leaders of the future. And I will try to teach either in Egypt or maybe come back as a visiting professor in the United States in some universities. And I want to share all I have gained through my long diplomatic career with the young people. I also will continue my work with the United Nations, because I've been for the last 5 years a member of the United Nations International Law Commission. We meet in Geneva in the summer, and we draft rules of international law and conventions for the United Nations on all issues, like covering the status of foreigners, the question of disasters, protection of people in disasters, the question of treaties, of immunity for state officials, really some very contemporary important issues. So I'm very happy to do this. But the most important thing I want to do is to continue to be a bridge between the United States and the Arab world, and to promote friendship and cooperation between the two sides.
Just between the two of us, if former Secretary General Moussa is elected president, might you have a spot in the government?
Well, this is too soon to tell. It depends, of course, on him, but it also depends on me. I'm not sure I want to be bureaucrat again, but we'll see. I prefer to enjoy my freedom and to do things I have always been wishing to do. But if you ask me about how I see things in Egypt, I'm optimistic, because up to now, during the last year, by the way, we just celebrated the first anniversary of the revolution. Throughout 2011, there was no clear vision where we are going. Now we have a clear vision. We had the elections, we have a new parliament, we will have a new constitution, and we'll have a new president.
We are coming to the end of our time. Just a quick comment on Israel-Palestine. Is there any hope of getting those two sides talking again, those two groups talking?
Well, this has been one of the main sources of my frustration during my long-term service in this country, seeing that we haven't had a settlement of this issue. I do hope that after the elections take place and new administration take place, the United States can resume its leadership role, its role of an honest broker, to bring the parties together and to have a not only solution of the Palestinian problem. We need a solution, comprehensive solution of peace in the Middle East, so that the people can enjoy peace, security, and stability.
Ambassador to Morocco, Yugoslavia, United Nations, League of Arab States, scholar, legal mind. What's the most important lesson you've learned in your life so far?
In my life, I learned that you have to work hard, that you have to be upbeat, that you have to be consistent, and you have to be open-minded, and also to build human relations, because you might leave your job, You might be rich one day, you might lose your money the other day, but the important thing in life is to have human relations, people you can rely on, and good friends. I'm very happy that I have achieved this while I've been in the United States.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to thank you, first of all, for your support, but more importantly, for your friendship.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Ambassador.
enjoyed your friendship as well, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Thanks.
For information about my new book, The Chance of a Lifetime, and online video for all This Is America programs, visit our website, thisisamerica.net. This is America is made possible by the National Education Association, the nation's largest advocate for children and public education. The American Federation of Teachers, a union of professionals. Punsan Corporation, forging a higher global standard. The CTC Foundation, AFO Communications, and the Rotendaro Family Trust.